Breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. Michigan edge rusher David Ojabo suffering a torn Achilles on Friday at Michigan's Pro Day, according to reports on Saturday morning. Ojabo was taking part in a pass rush drill when he went down clutching his left leg. He had to be helped off the field and is now facing at least 6 months in recovery. Ojabo recorded 11 sacks and 5 forced fumbles with the Wolverines in 2021. And he was a guy that CBS Sports football analyst and mock draft expert Ryan Wilson had being taken inside the top 20 in his latest mock draft over on CBSSports.com. Ryan joins us now. We'll get to his draft status in a minute, but first, we hate to see this stuff happen, Ryan, especially to a guy like Ojabo who really just started playing football, was really coming into his own on the gridiron. Let's start with your reaction to the news.
Well, it's terrible news, without a doubt, Jeremy. And I got a text from a scout who was at the Michigan Pro Day and said it does not look good. And this is before, of course, we found out today that it is, in fact, Achilles tear. And you're right. His story is a great story, David Ojabo. He was born in Nigeria. He grew up in Scotland. And he didn't come to the U.S. until he was 15. And he made it clear to us at the Combine that he came here for one reason. That was to get an education. Sports was secondary, according to his parents. And he got that education. He's an academic All-American at Michigan. And to your point, he's only been playing football 5 years. And he explained to us quite explicitly in clear terms, I don't even know what I'm doing out there. I was able to do the things that I did last season. I'm only going to get better. And that's why there was so much interest in Ojabo, the football player, because he is just scratching the surface on who he could be. And you mentioned those numbers coming in and how athletic he was, and it was all starting to come together. The good news is it's an Achilles. Guys tear their Achilles every season, and they come back. Cam Akers came back in 6 months, and he had an impact during the Rams' Super Bowl run. And we've seen this in the past with guys suffering, if not Achilles, ACL injuries. Jameson Williams is a guy to keep an eye on in Alabama who suffered in the championship game. But even if you go back to 2019, Jeremy, you have the the interior rusher for the Titans who was going to be a top 5 pick, and he ended up going 19th. He's had a fantastic career, Jeffrey Simmons has, and I think that's the path we're looking at for Ojabo. Is he going to go in the first round? We'll see. Teams will have to decide that. But if he goes in the second round, it's going to be a huge steal down the road for wherever he ends up. Yeah,
torn Achilles used to be a career-ending injury. Now you're just sitting on the sidelines for 6 months and your career continues. So in the latest mock, you have him going at 16 to the Philadelphia Eagles. So you talk about possibly falling to the second round. How much does this injury hurt his draft status?
It's going to have an impact. The Eagles have also signed Hassan Reddick, so that'll recalibrate what they may be looking for there. But right, in the last 2 months, maybe even more, I've had him going anywhere between 10 and 20 because that's where he feels like he'll be a good fit. Now with the injury, teams will have to reevaluate. He will undoubtedly move down draft boards. So he'll probably end up going in the second round, which means no fifth-year option, which means certainly less money. But that doesn't take away from the player he's going to be. And I think he tweeted out yesterday, before we knew the extent of the injury, that God has a plan for him, and this is just going to be part of his story. He's going to come back stronger than ever. All things you want to hear from a player who just suffered a devastating injury, certainly not a career-ending one, but one that will set him back and cost him some money. So I think now you're looking at a round 2 situation, but there are a ton of teams in round 2 that need edge help, and a few of them here. The Texans, Joe Musso's Bears, the Seahawks, the Falcons, the Steelers. So he won't get very far in round 2 should he fall that to that point. But I think at the end of the day, we'll look back in much the same way we look back at Jeffrey Simmons' career in Tennessee and go, man, maybe that guy should have gone a little higher. We get that he had an injury that kept him out of the lineup for 2 or 3 months. But on the back end of this thing, it's really working out for him and the team that drafted him.
Well, if he realizes his potential, really, he's just pushing the money back a few years. That's all. So you talk about some of the teams that need edge help. Who might move up as a result of the injury to Ojabo?
So I have 12 edge rushers that have either a first round or second round grade. So there are going to be guys that benefit, I don't know if that's the word you want to use, but benefit from the fact that Ojabo's injured, and teams will move them up the draft board as possible replacements, if you will. Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State's always been in that conversation after a strong Senior Bowl and Combine performance. Had a really good season for Florida State after transferring from Georgia. So he's been in that 15-ish or so mix. I think George Karlaftis out of Purdue has a chance to move up. I'm not as high on him as some other players. He reminds me a little bit of A.J. Epinesa in terms of he's good at times, and times he doesn't always show up. But I think there's there's a lot of upside there that teams are certainly interested in. You have Kingsley Ignagbare out of South Carolina, who's coming off a really good season. Boye Mafe is one of my favorite players in this draft. He's 264. He moves like he's about 215. He had a fantastic pro day, a great combine, and a great season. Those are some names to keep an eye on. 15 to 32 in round one, who have a chance to go there. And they may, frankly, have gone there anyway, depending on how these teams valued edge rushers and how the rest of the draft above them obviously falls out.
He is CBS Sports football analyst, mock draft expert Ryan Wilson, joining us to discuss the injury to former Michigan edge rusher David Ojabo, who, according to reports, suffering a torn Achilles injury on Friday, facing 6 months on the sidelines. They'll be discussing this and plenty other of NFL storylines, college football storylines, as we head towards the draft on the Pick 6 podcast. You can join Ryan Wilson, Will Brinson, and John Breach. Download and follow the Pick 6 podcast wherever you get your preferred podcast audio. You can also watch the program on YouTube.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.